Be me, 31, back-end engineer at a small logistics startup that sells visibility dashboards to warehouses. The product looks harmless until the dashboard lies and a loading dock goes blind at 2 a.m. My job is keeping data flowing, keeping services alive, and keeping clients from calling lawyers. Our office is 20 people, one decent meeting room, and a coffee machine that screams like a dying printer. Runway is always fine for now, and optimism is always one expansion away from comfortable. The expansion belongs to one massive client everyone calls the Golden Goose. They pay enough to cover payroll, and they complain enough to fill half my week. Nobody admits it out loud, but losing them means layoffs before winter. That pressure is how startups stay polite while they panic in private. I used to like the work because the rules were simple and the problems were real. Ship carefully, fix fast, don't lie to clients, and don't break production on Fridays. Then leadership decided we needed professional ops and culture at the same time. That's how Mara arrived. 34, new head of operations, perfect posture, and a practiced smile. She introduced herself like she was hosting a panel, not joining a company held together with duct tape. Her first all hands had pastel slides, calm words, and an undercurrent of control. She said she was building a safe space where everyone could do their best work. She said safe spaces need structure because old power dynamics sneak in through habits. Then she dropped the headline rule: men in this org need to practice stepping back. She called it allyship and said allies don't interrupt, don't dominate, and don't need to be the expert. The chat filled with hearts and claps because emojis are cheaper than questions. My face stayed neutral because rent is real and debates are optional. An org chart slide came next, and that slide had teeth. She announced a new lead for the Golden Goose rollout. Jade, 27, her former coworker. Jade looked upbeat and confident, the kind of confidence that stays steady while it guesses. The rollout was a minefield: compliance questions, downtime penalties, and deadlines that don't forgive vibes. I built half the integration last year, and I know where it breaks when the client sneezes. Mara framed Jade's appointment as a cultural milestone and a statement to the industry. She said women deserve the chance to lead complex work without being second-guessed by male voices. Then my name came up, slow and careful, like she was labeling a box on a shelf. She said I'd support the lead and focus on execution rather than direction. She said client-facing speaking should come through the lead to keep the space safe and balanced. More applause hit the chat like the room just watched a magic trick. I told myself titles are cosplay and I can survive cosplay. That optimism lasted exactly 1 week. Jade messaged me right after, cheerful punctuation, so excited to partner. She wanted a complete handoff so she could own the story for the client. I agreed because the client punishes unpreparedness, not politics. The handoff started normal and became a 4-hour tour once she asked what a queue is. She wasn't dumb, but she was new, and new is dangerous under compliance pressure. 2 days later, she ran her first prep call, like a school presentation with a friendly voice. The client asked basics: sync cadence, failure handling, recovery time, escalation, who gets paged at night. Her smile held for a second, then her eyes flicked to my camera like a lifeboat. A private chat popped. What do I say? Short and tense. I sent a clean answer. 1 sentence per point. No jargon, just facts. Those sentences came out of her mouth like they were always hers. The client nodded, satisfied, and moved on as if nothing was strange. right after a public praise post appeared celebrating Jade's leadership. My name didn't appear, which felt small until it turned into the rule. Nighttime brought the second pattern, the one nobody celebrates. At 9:49 p.m., Jade typed, "Help," with screenshots of staging failures. The issue was simple. A config value changed in the deployment pipeline. It was a 10-minute fix if you know where the switch is hidden. I walked her through the steps. Exact clicks, exact commands, exact verification. Staging went green and her panic dropped, and my phone stopped buzzing for a moment. She replied with hearts, then added, "Please don't tell Mara I asked." That last line landed heavy because it meant the rules were theater and she knew it. The next morning, a company update claimed, "Overnight progress led by women." The post said this was proof women don't need male expertise to ship real work. My jaw tightened because I could smell the future narrative forming. Over the next 2 weeks, my role became ghost labor that kept the lights on. In meetings, I got cut off gently with, "Let's make space," even when asked a direct question. In Slack, my input got requested privately, then reposted publicly as the lead's decision. Every urgent question hit Jade first, then quietly bounced to me when she stalled. The golden goose kept asking for specifics, and specifics kept coming from my keyboard. More culture posts appeared about women building without male gatekeeping. The vibe in the office turned strange, like a play where everyone knows the lines except the audience. I started speaking less because each sentence felt like raw material for someone else's story. That silence wasn't fear at first, it was survival. Survival became routine, and routine became resentment. One Thursday, we had a small outage. Nothing dramatic, but enough to wake the client's monitoring. An alert fired, Jade posted in the incident channel, and she tagged Mara for visibility. The incident channel had a new rule now. Women speak first, men support in threads. I watched Jade type, saw she was missing the real failure point, and felt my stomach drop. I asked one clarifying question, short and technical, trying to save time. A reply arrived from Mara within seconds. "Let Jade lead the analysis." The tone was polite, but it hit like a hand on my mouth. Jade guessed at the root cause and started rolling back the wrong component. Rollback made the outage worse because of course it did. The client's director joined the bridge and asked who was on technical command. Jade said she was, and the director's voice cooled immediately. That calm voice was money deciding whether to trust you. I could have taken over, but the rule was explicit and the target was painted. Instead, I messaged Jade privately with the correct fix and the correct sequence. She applied it, the system recovered, and the director stayed on the line, breathing slowly. When the bridge ended, Mara posted a recap praising Jade's steady leadership under pressure. Nobody mentioned the brief detour into disaster, because detours ruin narratives. Later that day, Mara posted another learning moment about men needing to resist rescuing. She wrote that rescuing reinforces dependence and steals growth from women leaders. She said supportive men should offer resources without taking space. It was impressive how she turned a near miss into a lesson about my existence. Jade messaged me again. "Thank you." And then, "Please don't let her know." Even Jade sounded tired of pretending. Mid-month leadership scheduled a big demo with the Golden Goose director attending. This demo mattered because the client was deciding expansion scope and contract length. Jade ran the demo, clicking through charts I built on a dashboard I keep alive with duct tape. An executive asked about uptime guarantees and escalation paths during peak hours. Her eyes flicked down and the private chat popped again. Another clean answer went out from me and another clean answer came out of her mouth. The executive nodded, satisfied, because clients don't care who typed the truth. Mara decided to take a victory lap while everyone was still listening. She joked that we still have one guy around who thinks men are required for systems to work. She called it cute, like watching someone unlearn conditioning in real time. Some laughed, some forced laughs, and everyone avoided looking at me. He'd hit my face not because I was offended, because I'd been publicly labeled as the problem. That joke was a target painted with a smile. After the demo, a private message arrived. Warm tone, sharp content. She wrote that she appreciated my restraint and hoped I was learning not to center myself. Then she wrote that accountability matters and high-stakes work requires ownership. Then she wrote that if the client complains, engineering performance will be examined closely. Finally, she wrote that I'm the most experienced, so I should own outcomes. The threat was wrapped in a compliment, which is how adults threaten you at work. My mood didn't spike. It settled into focus like a lens tightening. She wanted my labor and my silence at the same time. When something broke, she wanted my name loud and my voice gone. That night, a boring folder appeared on my laptop, titled Expansion Timeline. Screenshots went in. Public rules, private threats, praise posts, and late-night help requests. No plan to leak, no fantasies about going viral, just receipts for survival. I wasn't trying to win a culture war. I was trying not to be the designated fall guy. The next day, a cheerful meeting hygiene practice got announced. Men shouldn't speak first, shouldn't summarize, shouldn't correct, and shouldn't take the floor. Technical input could be shared privately with the female lead to preserve safety. The room nodded because nodding is the office sport. My mouth stayed shut because I was done giving anyone free material to twist. The Golden Goose emailed, "Final confirmation call for expansion next week." This call decides whether we grow or pretend we're fine while runway shrinks. Mara called it a values milestone and scheduled a rehearsal with cameras on. Jade looked shaky during rehearsal because she still didn't own the details. Coaching focused on confidence and presence like presence can stop an outage. Instructions came to me: sit quietly on the real call and be available if invited. That wording was dangerous because available means take blame if it fails. The trap was obvious. Speak without permission and violate the rule. Stay silent and take the blame anyway. Either way, I lose unless the rule gets pinned down in public. The day before the call, I posted one simple question in the main project channel. The question was polite. Who will answer technical risk questions on tomorrow's call? A second sentence followed. I want to respect meeting norms and not speak out of turn. Mara replied fast and publicly because she hates uncertainty that isn't hers. She wrote that Jade is the lead and will answer client questions, and men should not jump in. She added a note about processing discomfort privately if anyone feels triggered by silence. Hearts and claps reacted like it was a motivational quote instead of a rule with consequences. That thread went into my folder because it was her signature in daylight. Late that night, Jade pinged again, apologetic, asking what to say about rollback and liability. Bullet points went back from me. Simple language, clear numbers because clients respect numbers. She thanked me and repeated, "Please don't mention I asked," like she was confessing a crime. Sleep arrived light and broken because tomorrow had teeth. Morning hit with that tense quiet you only get before a high-stakes call. Mara arrived dressed like she was walking onto a stage, smile loaded and ready. Jade looked perfect on camera and pale around the eyes like she was hiding panic. The client joined with a director and a compliance person, which means money is nervous. Opening remarks became a speech about partnership, trust, and human-centered systems. The director nodded politely because clients have heard 1,000 speeches and paid for half of them. Jade ran through timelines, deliverables, and the easy story parts. Then the director asked the real question: what happens when the system goes down during peak load? Compliance followed up: who can trigger rollback and what is the recovery target? Confident words started, then drifted into vague promises and will follow up. The director's voice cooled because cool voices mean contracts are walking toward the door. That desperate look snapped to me, sharp and urgent, the look that says fix it quietly like always. My hands stayed still for a beat because this moment was the whole point. Unmute happened slowly because slow is power when someone else is desperate. The first sentence left my mouth calm. I can answer, but I need clarity on the rule. The next sentence landed gently. Yesterday you wrote that men shouldn't jump in, and Jade answers. My tone stayed neutral because smugness would hand her the villain card. Another line followed. I don't want to undermine our process in front of the client. Silence hit the call, thick and sudden, and everyone felt it. The director looked confused because normal companies don't treat facts like forbidden speech. Jade looked like she might cry because the floor just dropped out under her performance. A nervous laugh tried to cover it and failed. A quiet reply went out from me. Agreed. And that's why I asked for clarity in advance. The hook set clean. If you officially say I can speak, I will answer right now. Her smile froze because the trap was understood, and there was no clean escape. Eyes flicked off camera toward the founder in the room like a kid checking a parent's face. The founder's expression wasn't political, just tired and calculating. She swallowed and said the words her brand was built to avoid. Okay, go ahead, answer. Came out like it tasted bad. The surrender wasn't loud, but it landed like a gavel. Facts rolled out in plain language: redundancy, alerting, escalation, rollback, recovery target. Numbers followed, short enough for patience, clear enough for compliance notes. Shoulders loosened on the client side as fog cleared because reality entered the room. Another question came about data loss, and another clean answer followed. The director said that is what they needed, and expansion proceeds if the SLA matches. The promise was made to deliver the SLA by end of day. The call ended, and the room held a quiet that felt like shame without a name. Afterward, Mara stood too fast and demanded a debrief, voice tight, eyes hot. Jade got pulled into a meeting room and the door stayed half open like a threat. Voices rose inside, not screaming, but sharp enough to carry through drywall. Accusations spilled out. I embarrassed her. I undermined women leadership. I weaponized policy. The story sounded elegant because she practices elegant stories for a living. My response stayed boring on purpose because boring is harder to attack. A private Slack channel appeared titled Accountability, like a joke from the universe. Messages arrived fast, calling my behavior manipulative, harmful, and documentable. One sentence went back: I followed the stated rule until you approved otherwise. The response was, leadership will address this. which is adult language for revenge. The next morning, a culture incident review got scheduled. Mandatory, cameras on, serious tone. The incident was framed as harm, not as business risk, because harm is easier to argue. Feelings got collected, discomfort got named, and nobody wanted to be the wrong person in the room. My intention got questioned like a judge wearing a therapist mask. The explanation stayed brief. I asked for clarity, respected the rule. Client needed specifics. Impact was said to matter more than intent, which is a multi-tool for power. An apology got requested, not for client risk, for damage to the narrative. The room leaned toward the expected ending where I fold and the story stays hers. Instead, I said, I'm glad the client got what they needed, and I'll keep supporting delivery. That refusal was quiet, and quiet refusals scare people who live on theater. Later that day, Derek, 42, the founder, asked me for a private chat. His tone was tired, not angry, which is how you know money is doing math. He opened with a sigh and said she claims I trapped her in front of the client. I said I can show the timeline and he can decide what to believe. Screenshots appeared. My public question, her public rule, her private threat about engineering blame. More receipts followed, late-night help pings, incident rules, praise posts that erase the source. No insults got used because insults are a gift to someone who wants conflict. The point landed simple. I wasn't allowed to speak until she needed me, and I refused scapegoating. Derek rubbed his face like someone doing math he hates. He asked why I didn't just answer immediately and avoid awkwardness. The answer stayed plain. Answering would break her rule, and I'd still be the problem. He asked what I want, because founders ask that like everything is a negotiation. I asked for clarity, responsibility, and protection from being made the fall guy. He sat quiet, then said, he'll handle it, which is the closest thing to comfort in startups. 2 days later, a short update posted in the company channel. No speech, no emojis, just plain text. Operational ownership moved to Serena, a program manager with scars from real launches. Community strategy and brand partnerships became Mara's new focus, which is a polite benching. Reactions appeared as usual, claps, hearts. Love this, because chat loves theater. Serena pinged me right away and asked for the messy truth, not the polished story. A new rhythm started. Fewer slogans, more checklists, clearer owners, fewer surprise meetings. Jade looked relieved and embarrassed at the same time, like someone leaving a cult quietly. Mara stayed publicly smiling and privately quiet, which is how you can tell she's furious. The benching didn't end her influence because she still had Slack access and a fan club of nervous people. Vague posts started appearing about invisible resistance and systems of sabotage. She never named anyone because naming creates facts, and facts are dangerous. Serena pulled me into a quick sync and asked one thing. What's the real risk before the SLA is signed? I liked that question because it was boring and direct. I told her we need locked configuration, one real rollback runbook, and fewer surprise changes. She nodded and asked for owners and dates like an adult. That same day, HR pinged me with a short call titled Alignment. HR asked if I could be more mindful about tone and timing in high-stakes meetings. I said I'll be mindful, and I also need clear rules that don't make me a scapegoat. The call ended without fireworks, but I could feel a last move being prepared. Small sabotage attempts followed, the kind that can be called mistakes if caught. My access to one client channel disappeared, then reappeared after Serena asked why. An incident rotation sheet suddenly put Jade alone on a weekend shift she begged not to take. Saturday night, a real alert fired, peak load, queue choking, client watching. Jade called me shaking, and I coached her through the fix step by step. The system recovered, and 15 minutes later, a public message praised Jade for owning the incident. That praise came from the benched manager's account, which told Serena everything she needed to know. Serena answered in the same channel with one calm sentence: "Owners will communicate updates going forward." The channel went quiet because nobody likes watching a calm person win. With Serena running things, the SLA work moved fast and clean. We defined recovery targets, escalation paths, and who can trigger rollback. We added one boring line that mattered: technical lead may speak directly when client risk questions arise. It wasn't about gender. It was about responsibility. And responsibility is what adults sign. The Golden Goose scheduled a final check-in call before signatures. The invite included Serena, Jade, me, and the client's compliance person. The check-in was boring in the best way. Questions came, answers followed, no theater. Right before ending, the client director cleared their throat and shifted tone. They said they'd seen an online post implying our company silenced women-led leadership. Serena asked what they meant, still polite, still calm. The director said they normally avoid vendor drama, but the post referenced a call they were on. They said they care about accountability and truth under pressure, nothing else. They said the expansion proceeded because someone provided concrete answers when leadership couldn't. Serena thanked them, ended the call, and stared at the screen for a second. She said, "Okay, I'm done pretending this is normal," then went back to sending the SLA. Curiosity won later, so I opened LinkedIn and found the post. It was long, soft tone, sharp blame, no names, plenty of hints. It claimed a male engineer weaponized policy to humiliate women leadership in front of a client. Comments filled with strangers cheering, because strangers love a clean villain story. I closed it because arguing online is free labor for the storyteller. An hour later, a coworker texted, "Look at the comments now." The Golden Goose director had replied publicly with a verified company profile. Their comment was short, calm, and more brutal than any rant. It said, "No, you enforced silence on technical staff, then asked for answers when risk was raised." It said, "We needed specific facts and your engineer provided them when permitted to speak." It said, "Please don't blame culture for rules that increased customer risk on our call." Then it ended. "We sign vendors who tell the truth, not vendors who rehearse narratives." Supporters went quiet because fighting the paying customer looks insane. She tried one vague reply about harm, and the director answered once, "Harm is losing our trust, and you almost did." The office learned within the hour because offices treat humiliation like group entertainment. Messages shifted from feelings to work, like someone flipped a switch. Jade looked mortified for a day, then strangely relieved, like a spell broke. Serena gave her real tasks and real accountability, the scary kind that builds skill. The founder never mentioned the comment publicly because founders hate acknowledging embarrassment. He just met with her behind a closed door, and the meeting ran long. 2 days later, she announced she was transitioning to new opportunities, the classic exit line. After she left, the company didn't become paradise, but the air got lighter. The Golden Goose signed the expansion, and payroll stopped feeling like a cliff edge for a while. I kept my receipts folder anyway because lessons stick even when the threat disappears. The weird part wasn't her losing, the weird part was how fast reality ended the argument. Nobody canceled her. Nobody screamed. Nobody needed a dramatic speech. The paying customer wrote the last line, and that line mattered more than any slogan. Jade also pulled me aside after the dust settled and asked if I hated her. I told her I don't hate her. I hate being turned into a prop in someone else's story. She admitted she felt like a prop too, just with nicer lighting. She said she kept pretending because she thought that was what leadership wanted. I told her real leadership is owning the system, not owning the credit. She asked for one resource to start learning for real, and I gave her the runbook and the test environment. The next week, she fixed a small bug on her own and wrote a clear update without drama. It wasn't heroic, but it was honest, and honest is rare in startups. Serena noticed and praised the work, not the identity, and Jade smiled like she could finally breathe. That's when I realized the sweetest revenge wasn't humiliation. The sweetest revenge was a company choosing boring competence over polished theater.